Hi, GenderBlenders. Welcome to week 69. And this week's question is, on the road through transition, where are there any behaviors you had to change or hobbies you had to give up? Did you keep any despite transition? Is there anything you fear losing? Well, this week's topic deals with losses and changes. You know, I think we all agree that there's a lot of things that we gain in our transition. But do we have things that we have to lose, or do we have things that we have to change? So I'd like to talk a little bit about these things this week. And I'll break this down into a couple of different categories. Behaviors that I wanted to change. Behaviors that I had to change, that is necessitated by the mere act of transition. Hobbies or activities that I had to modify or give up. Things that I kept in transition. And anything that I fear losing. Or anything that I did lose. So let's talk about behaviors that I wanted to change. Typically, these are the typical male characteristics, from the sublime to the ridiculous, that I wanted to change. Coughing, the manner in which you cough, sneezing, farting, belching, those kinds of things. And of course, men do it in certain ways, women do it in other ways. And although I didn't have to change these kinds of behaviors, I wanted to. Things that would aid me in correctly gender identification. What do I mean by that? Mannerisms, typically. How you stand, how you walk. The typical things that men do that women don't do, and women do that men don't do, kind of a thing. And transitioning in either direction, from male to female or female to male, typically you want to change these kinds of things. It's a behavior. There's also those neutral characteristics that are no longer appropriate. For male to female, holding doors open for somebody coming down the road, kind of a thing. Clothing choices, posture. Yeah, it kind of overlaps with things that help me correctly identify. But I end up being a lot more fastidious about my clothing choices and how I dress. I dress much nicer as a woman than I ever did as a man. I'm more careful about the kinds of things that I wear and things like that. This is my very, very casual. I just got back from Disneyland. This is what I wore to Disneyland. So that's very casual, and that's Mickey on the side. I don't know whether you can tell that or not. So that's one of my choices for that. And if I get up, it's a skirt underneath. So that's what I wore to Disneyland. I would be less careful about what I wore there before. But I'm a little bit more careful now because it's more important to me. So those things are the things that I wanted to change. Behaviors that I had to change, necessitated by the physical alterations of transition. And there's not many of those. Carrying a lot of things simultaneously, I've lost a lot of strength. Okay? So I can't really do much of that anymore. So those kinds of things, there are weight issues. Can I name anything explicitly? No. Is there characteristics or alterations? And I'll explain that in a couple different contexts in a minute. But you folks, you know, I've showed you all my tube audio equipment. back there. And tube audio stuff tends to be very heavy because it's full of iron. Lots of iron, and they're typically heavy and have lots of weight to them and things like that. You remember the old TV sets and the old stereos and things like that. They used to be heavy things. They're a lot lighter now. And I do that as a hobby. And consequently, some of the ways in which I design something will be altered a little bit. So that's a behavior that I had to change, so to speak, necessitated by my transition. I can't carry around a 100-pound amplifier as easy as I used to. Hobbies and activities I had to modify or give up. Guys' night out, no longer appropriate. And I'm no longer welcome at guys' night out. Because I'm not a guy anymore. I was never really into typical male sports and hobbies, so I didn't have any issues associated with that kind of thing. My hobbies, primarily sports-oriented hobbies, are bowling and tennis. And I didn't have to give either of those up, although for the bowling issue, that's a 16-pound ball. It's my old bowling ball. I've had this thing for years and years and years and years, and I can still throw it reasonably well. Then nails kind of get in the way. But I can still maneuver it reasonably well if I'm careful. But because I have to be a little bit more careful, probably means that one of the things that I've given up is probably some points in my bowling average. I used to be able to bowl 190. I haven't bowled recently, so I don't know what I'm bowling right now. But I did just throw the ball down the living room a little while ago. And I can throw it just perfectly fine. It just whacked into the wall nicely and all that sort of good stuff. Tennis, I had to get new clothes. That's my old bowling shoes. I haven't yet gotten new then, but that would not be appropriate for me to wear now. So I will probably get new bowling shoes at some point in time. Tennis outfit, I certainly had to get a new tennis outfit. So that's things that I kept in spite of transition. Is there anything I fear in losing? I haven't really lost anything. But is there some things that I did fear losing? I think some of you folks know I'm reasonably religious in what I do. You've maybe seen some of my own videos on my channel that are oriented towards some of my religious beliefs and activities. And I thought I would have a harder time at church. You see, in addition to teaching Bible study, I also usher, and I also do what's called perpetual adoration kinds of things twice a week. And I thought I would be forced to give up some of those activities, mainly, things like ushering and things like that. It hasn't happened. It just hasn't happened. I have been very much blessed with being able to continue all of those activities, and I have not been given a hard time at church whatsoever over this transition. So I did fear losing that. Would I stop my transition if I had to lose some of those? No, I would not. I was prepared to be a martyr if I had to be. But it didn't happen, and I think that's telling. But those are some of the things that I feared losing, and it just didn't happen. Do I fear losing anything else? Oh, no. Do I fear losing muscle mass? No, I don't fear that at all. I welcome it. I look better. So, anyway, that's my take on the road through transition and what we had to give up and things like that. Hope this has been entertaining. Until next week, this is Steffi saying bye-bye, everyone.